Joined once again by CNN's David Gergen, Brianna Keilar, and Gloria Borgia. I want to get to the specifics of the health care debate in a minute. But first, I want to put the umbrella up, if you will, of the political climate we are in. The NBC Wall Street Journal poll this past week asked, is President Obama taking on too many issues and not focused on the important ones? As you know, here in Washington, people say too many issues at once. You can't handle all this. The system will collapse. Well, the American people disagree. Is he taking on too much? Yes, 37%. No, a resounding 60%. And yet, when you go into the policies and you ask about, are you worried about what's happening in Washington? You see some support for the president softening. Are you concerned about government intervention right now across the board? 69% say they're a great deal or quite a bit concerned. 17% say they're just some concerned. 13% say a very little. So, David, if you're a Democratic president, your popularity is still high, but you're beginning to see out there, if you're at 69% of the American people have a little jitters about the reach of government, that's a lot of Democrats and independents.
It is, John. And in some ways, I think if you're a Democrat sitting in the White House like Rahm Emanuel, it says, let's step on the gas and get this done as quickly as possible before we see more erosion. Let's get it done while we're reasonably strong, but by come October, November, we may be down farther. But it does suggest that the Republicans have, and especially the moderate Democrats, these are going to be the turn people. They're going to watch those numbers, you well know, especially in the Middle West, and say, can I afford to vote for something that's losing support quickly in my own district?
And where you work, Republicans see this, and they're trying to stoke it more every day. Too much government, too much spending, can't afford it.
They certainly are, and yet Democrats will also point to, and just in general, Democrats and Republicans who say something needs to be done, for instance, about health care, which is the big thing we're looking at on the Hill right now. So on one hand, you have Americans saying they're concerned about government involvement, but polling also shows that they want something done about health care, that a lot of them are even willing to pay more tax dollars to do something about it. And so there's a bit of a paradox as well for what they're hearing. And so Democrats are pointing to that as, you know, backing up what they want to do.
You know, they're hugely conflicted, as they always are when you cover a health care debate, which is, on the one hand, people want universal health care in this country. They think it's probably a good idea. They'd like the government to get involved. On the other hand, they're afraid it's going to affect them. If they like their health care, they don't want that to change, and they're worried about how to pay for it, because they know that the way to pay for health care reform is raising taxes, and no matter which way you raise taxes, somebody's going to be upset about it. So, you know, the public wants it. They don't want to pay for it, and they don't want to lose what they have.
We saw a lot of this same kind of conflicts in the polls back when the Clintons tried to reform health care. A lot of support for it, as Brianna said, but a lot of concerns about it. And one of the things this White House has done, which has been very smart, is to put the emphasis on getting costs down. And you'll keep your plan, we're going to get the costs down. In the Clinton years, the emphasis was on getting more people covered. And a lot of people already had coverage, really got worried and got scared.
It does allow Republicans a window at this point in time, though, John, especially with health care stumbling out of the gates, because with these big question marks still of how to pay for it and whether there's going to be this government-run insurance plan or is it going to be a co-op, what is it going to be, it allows Republicans to really look at those concerns people have. Is this going to be bureaucrats making decisions? Is this going to be a complete government takeover? Is the government going to get in the way of your health care? And so it really does allow them to push that point of view.
And to that point, the goal at the beginning, the Democrats run the show, Democratic president, Democratic Congress, is universal coverage. We're going to bring everybody under the umbrella. We're also going to change the way we do the system. We're going to put an emphasis on wellness. We're going to have this radical change at once. Supporters and critics use the term radical. Chuck Grassley, we talked about him earlier. He's the ranking Republican on the Finance Committee. If you're going to pay for health care, it has to go through that committee. He says he still thinks this year you can get a bipartisan deal, but he says everybody may have to just look down a little bit, shorten their sights, not do as much as they had hoped. Let's listen.
We're in the position of dialing down some of our expectations to get the costs down so that it's affordable, and most importantly, so that it's paid for.
Now, there's a leading Republican saying, I think we can still do this affordable and paid for if we compromise our expectations a little bit, and yet a leading Democrat from a big state, California. A lot of hospitals in trouble in the system there. Dianne Feinstein, you wouldn't call her way out conservative. She's not liberal, but she's not way out conservative. You know what she says?
To be candid with you, I don't know that he has the votes right now. I think there's a lot of concern in the Democratic caucus.
So if he doesn't have the votes right now, David, to your point, Rahm Emanuel says, you know, step on the gas before we lose more people. But
Well, I think that they've got to decide, do they want to do this with Democrats only, or are they going to try to do it bipartisan? And I think increasingly, I think a major turning point in this whole debate came early this week, this past week, with the release of the Congressional Budget Office measurements of how much this was going to cost. And it was sticker shock written all over that, and it has sent shockwave through the Congress, and I think that has put in jeopardy whether they can actually get it done this year with a robust bill.
And I think they've made the decision that if it takes only Democrats doing it, plus a few Republicans here and there, that's the way they'll do it. I mean, they want to get it done.
There does seem to be, though, a small group of Republicans and Democrats in the Senate who are meeting together, including Chuck Grassley, including Max Baucus on the Democrat side, Bingaman on the Democrat side, Rockefeller as well on the Republican side. You've got Olympia Snowe and Senator Enzi, and they seem really intent on trying to work out some sort of bipartisan compromise. If you were outside of Max Baucus's hideaway this past week, you see them going in and out, and we weren't getting really firm, a really firm sense of how things were going. They were playing that kind of close to the vest, but what they've been doing is crunching numbers with the Congressional Budget Office. They got that $1.6 trillion price tag that really threw them for a loop, and so as you heard Chuck Grassley say, they're dialing things down. They're trying to find the magic recipe. If you put this in and it brings the price down, you know, how do you do that? But there are still big questions.
It's been so interesting. Baucus is playing a really constructive role in this, but Chuck Grassley, it's very interesting to see that.
Why are you so surprised?
I just think he deserves a lot of credit. This pharmaceutical deal.
I need to call a timeout. We're out of time here. We'll keep watching it. Straight ahead, a look at how advanced electronics are revolutionizing medical care and some hope, ultimately, medical costs.